You know, one thing I love about the sport of basketball is there's so many great players that have came into the league. I mean, for me personally, it's just like I just never run out of things to talk about in regards to just different players I'm covering because there's so many players that some people know about, and then there's some that people don't know about. And then it leads to debates for different players. Who's greater than who? Who's greater at this position? Who would have did more in this era? How would this player thrive in this era? And you can just go on and on and on. And that's what I love about it because, as I said, there's so many great players that you can make compelling arguments for. And then, of course, you know, when it comes to the debates about who's the greatest player of all time, who would you rank in your top 5, top 10, what are we really getting at? Are we talking about stats? Are we talking about longevity stats, per game stats? Who would you take in their prime, at their best? Who would you take for the totality of their career? Is it based off, championships, MVP awards? What is it exactly? Well, I'm going to say this. This player right here by the name of Kareem Abdul Jabbar, when it comes to what he did in his total career, meaning what? Not just NBA, but high school, college, and then the NBA. He might have the strongest case overall when it comes to all three levels. He might have the strongest case overall for being the greatest player in basketball history. So that's what led me to make a video about him today. It's not even just about the stats or the awards, the championships. It really is all of them combined. And then on top of that, what he did from start to finish, it's really unbelievable. So we're going to get right into it today. So let's get started. All right, so let me say this first about Kareem before I even touch on his basketball career. For those who don't already know, and I'm sure a lot of people do know this, Kareem was one of those guys, whether or not you were a fan of basketball or not, you know a lot about him, most likely just because of how he stood out. But his original name was Ferdinand Louis Alcindor Jr., so he went by Lou Alcindor before he converted over to the Muslim religion, and that's when he changed his name to Kareem Abdul Jabbar. So I just wanted to throw that in there first before I got started. All right, so let's touch on his basketball career now. So Kareem, he started off playing at a high school called Power Memorial in New York City, and that high school is known for having a 71-game win streak within a span of 3 seasons when Kareem played there. And their record overall when he played there was 79-2, and they won 3 consecutive state championships from his sophomore to his senior year. So he started off having a dominant high school career. Every year he was named an All-American, and he showed how he was able to improve season by season because in his sophomore year, the first year that they won, he averaged 19 points. Then in his junior year, it went up to 26 points. And then in his senior year, it went up to 33 points. So he kept getting better each season. And, of course, he was averaging double-digit rebounds. So he started off with a bang in high school. And then, of course, he took it to college where he played under Coach John Wooden for UCLA. He played there for 3 seasons from 1967 to 1969. In the 67 and 69 season, he was named the College Player of the Year. He was named the Final Four Most Outstanding Player all 3 seasons, and his team won the championship all 3 seasons as well. So he started off dominating in high school, took it to college, and it was the same trend. And let me not forget to mention this too. And I stated that Kareem played for UCLA from 67 to 69. That's when he was eligible to play because his first year he came there as a freshman in 1966. At the time, freshmen were not eligible to play for their squads. But they did have a scrimmage where the UCLA freshman team squared off against the varsity squad, and they were able to beat them. So that was just a little glimpse of what was to come. And his first actual game on the varsity squad the next season, his first game playing for UCLA, he dropped 56 points, which is unbelievable. And then he had a game later that season where he dropped 61 points. And for his career, he averaged 26.5 points per game and 15.5 rebounds a game for the UCLA Bruins. So by this point, it wasn't a question that, of course, Kareem was going to be the number 1 overall draft pick in the 1969 NBA draft. And he was drafted number 1 overall by the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, the Milwaukee Bucks, they were a team that just got started the year before. Their first year as a franchise in the NBA was in the 68-69 season, and they finished with the 27-55 record that year. So now all of a sudden, in their second season, Kareem Abdul Jabbar's first season, they go from 27-55 to 56-26. That's how much of an impact Kareem had in just his first season on the Milwaukee Bucks. And he finished with a scoring average of 28 points per game. Obviously, he won the Rookie of the Year, and he made the All-NBA second team for overall and also the All-NBA second team for defense, and he made the All-Rookie first team. And in that season, they were able to advance to the second round of the playoffs. Now, at that point in time, too, by the way, I want to clarify this as well. There was only 2 rounds that you had to go through to get to the finals. So they actually made it to the conference finals, and they ended up losing to the New York Knicks. So they went through one round. By the next round, they were in the conference finals, and they lost to the eventual champions, the New York Knicks, who were led by Willis Reed, who was the MVP that season. Now, by year 2, the Bucks were able to acquire Oscar Robertson to join forces with Kareem. This would be the 1970 through 71 season, and of course, Oscar Robertson, up until that point, he had not won a championship. So he was able to join up with Kareem. They were able to put it together. The Bucks took it to the next level. They won 66 games that year, led the league in wins. Kareem averaged 31 points per game, 16 rebounds. He led the league in scoring. He won the MVP that year, and they were able to win the championship that year as well, where they swept the Baltimore Bullets, and Kareem averaged 27 points and 18 rebounds, and of course he won the Finals MVP. And the next season, the 71 through 72 season, he came back even stronger. He upped his scoring average to almost 35 points per game, led the league in scoring again, and won his second consecutive MVP award, and the Bucks won 63 games. However, they didn't lead the league in wins that year. The Lakers that year won 69 games, and that was the team that they lost to in the conference finals, who had Wilt Chamberlain and Jerry West on the squad, and that was the year that they won the championship. The Lakers did. And the season after that, the 72-73 season, they won 60 games, the Bucks did, and they lost in the first round that year to the Golden State Warriors, who had Rick Barry on the squad at that time. Rick Barry was on that team. They lost to them in 6 games. And then the following season, they won 59 games. Kareem won his third MVP award that season in the 73-74 season. And they made it all the way to the finals that year, where they ended up losing to the Boston Celtics in a classic 7-game series. And that's the squad that had John Havlicek that year, who won the finals MVP. And that would be Oscar Robertson's last season. So the Bucks took a big hit next season, not only because Oscar Robertson retired, but also Kareem had some injuries to start the season. So he missed a good portion of the early part of the season. He did still play 65 games total. But getting off to a bad start like that, it was hard for them to get back on track and recover. And they actually missed the playoffs. And that was Kareem's last season with the Milwaukee Bucks. They finished with a 38-44 record. Of course, Kareem still put up great numbers, but they didn't qualify for the playoffs, and he ended up parting ways with them after that. So going into the 75-76 season, he ended up being traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. And in his first season there, he helped them improve, but they still only won 38 games. So they finished with a 38-44 record that year in his first season with the Los Angeles Lakers now. And for whatever reason, even though his team didn't make the playoffs, he was still awarded the MVP of the regular season. Back then, the players used to vote for the MVP. And to his credit, though, he averaged over 27 points per game that season. And he did lead the league in rebounds, averaging over 16 a game, and also blocked shots, averaging 4 a game. So, yes, he did his part. But, I mean, this is just me personally speaking, of course. I don't believe that an MVP award should be awarded to a player that didn't qualify for the playoffs, but they gave it to him. And it is what it is. That was his now 4th MVP award. And then the next season, going into the 76-77 season, Kareem did win his 5th MVP award. And let me just say this to make this quick. From the 76-77 season to the 78-79 season, the Lakers got better. They made the playoffs every single season, but they weren't able to get over the hump. Kareem was dominant, but it just wasn't enough. And they weren't able to get it done until they were able to bring in Magic Johnson in the 79-80 season. And then that was the year Kareem won his 6th and final MVP award that season. And Kareem was very dominant in the playoffs en route to the finals that year. He averaged 32 points per game throughout the entirety of the playoffs. Of course, he averaged double-digit rebounds, 12 rebounds a game, 4 blocks. Pretty much put up those same numbers in the finals as well. And if it wasn't for an injury that he suffered in Game 5, he really should have been the MVP of the finals anyway, in my opinion. But, of course, as I covered in the Magic Johnson video, Magic Johnson closed out the Philadelphia 76ers that season in Game 6 with a historically great performance by a rookie player. But Kareem's numbers don't lie. He was the most dominant player in that series, and he probably should have got an MVP. But the Lakers did capture the championship that year. That was Kareem's second championship. And, of course, going forward, he teamed up with Magic, of course, and they won 5 championships total together. Kareem was the MVP of the 85 finals. He was the oldest winner of that award at 38 years old. And he averaged 26 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists in that series. And then, of course, the Lakers ended up winning 2 more back-to-back championships in 87 and 88. And in Kareem's final season in 1989, they made it to the finals. But Magic Johnson did go down due to injury, and they were swept by the Detroit Pistons. So most of Kareem's dominant individual seasons came in the 1970s decade. Of course, he did have that one championship that he won in 71, but for the most part, he didn't have too much team success. Most of his overall team success came in the 1980s when he had the team around him that he needed to really win. And, of course, his stats started to drop off as the 80s went forward, but that is because, of course, he was aging and Magic Johnson came onto the scene and he slowly but surely started to take a back seat. And he was okay with that. So this is a man that won 6 championships total. He has 6 regular season MVP awards, which is the most all time. He won 2 finals MVP awards. He was a 19-time NBA All-Star, which is a record. Also made the All-NBA team 15 times, 10 on the first team, 5 on the second team. Made the All-Defensive team 11 times. He made the first team 5 times. He made the second team 6 times. Led the league in scoring twice. Led the league in rebounds once. Led the league in block shots 4 times. He's 3rd all-time in career block shots. And please keep in mind that they didn't even keep track of block shots until like his 4th or 5th season. And he's still 3rd all-time. Who knows if they were to keep track of them before that, where he would be ranked. He's number 4 all-time in career rebounds. And, of course, he's number 1 all-time in career points total. So that's how dominant of a player he was. And, of course, you know, that points total that he has right now, that probably will end up being broken by LeBron James as long as he stays healthy and plays long enough. But that's a record that has stood for well over what now? He retired in 89. It's 2021. So about 30 years, man. But I wanted to give Kareem a special shout out today. As I stated in the beginning of the video, I do believe you can make a very strong argument that he is the greatest player of all time when it comes to basketball on all levels. All-time great dominant player on all levels. Numerous accolades, plenty of dominant statistics you can look at to validate his greatness. And I wanted to shout him out today. For those who already know about him, that's great. For those who are not too familiar with what he was able to do in his career, hopefully you were educated today. I appreciate everybody that's been tuning into my videos. And, of course, there's still more to come. So I thank you again. Everyone have a blessed day. All glory be to God.